we've been covering an absolutely insane story here in Baltimore today that scares me and frankly should scare us all.
Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. I would love it since you clicked on the video to watch it if you would also click on that subscribe button. And if you're returning, welcome back. I truly do appreciate your continued support on my channel, and I hope that you are subscribed as well. So I know I have talked about AI a few times on my channel at this point, and while I know that there are a lot of advantages to AI and a lot of people use it for positive purposes, the more that I see of it, the more that I really think that there are so many risks associated with it. And not only that, it just seems to be one more thing for those who have no problem ruining innocent people's lives. It's just one more tool for them to use for that purpose. And generally, the people that want to use AI to go after others and ruin their lives for no other reason than that they themselves are just a morally bankrupt, soulless human being, they're usually the same people that claim to be the party of love, tolerance, and inclusivity, and of human rights. So let's just look at this story. This happened back in January, and this whole thing just makes my stomach turn. So in January, an audio recording made the rounds on social media, and it was said to be the voice of a principal at Pikeville High in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, the recording was purported to have been taken in secret, and the comments in this sound clip were very racist, very anti-Semitic, and they were about the students and staff from the school that this principal was overseeing. And naturally, people were taken aback and they were outraged over the things that this man had been accused of saying. But the reason I say that he was accused of saying them instead of saying that this was a legit recording of a conversation that he was having, from the beginning, there were serious questions about whether or not this was even authentic or was it AI generated. Now, the reporting on this, I believe, was just egregious from the get-go because it did carry a very clear agenda, at least in my opinion, of painting this as something that was legit, while offering just enough credibility to the idea that it could be fake, so as basically to pass themselves off as legitimate journalists who were interested in the truth.
A disturbing audio recording is circulating in the community tonight. Now, the recording is allegedly of the principal of Pikesville High School making racist and anti-Semitic comments about students, about community members, and staff. WJZ obtained a copy of that recording. We're live tonight on your corner outside the school. Jessica Albert has reaction from the Pikesville community. Jessica.
Denise, people I spoke with about that recording today say that they're shocked and outraged by the comments that are made in it. Baltimore County schools say they are investigating where the recording came from, but tonight, since WJZ cannot verify the authenticity of the recording, we're choosing not to air any portion of it.
So they hit all of the buzzwords: shocked, outraged, racist, anti-Semitic, etc. They're really painting the picture of it so that people barely hear the words allegedly or the question of the authenticity of it. And of course, conveniently, since they can't verify if it's authentic, they're not going to play it so that we can judge for ourselves. But don't worry, they'll just keep driving home how racist, anti-Semitic, shocking, and outrageous it is. And now, of course, they're out there getting all of this reaction from the community, but does the community know that it's even being questioned as to whether or not this is real? And are they being encouraged to wait to hold their judgment until they have a conclusion on that fact? Of course not. And you can see that as a news anchor goes on to interview one such community member.
He needs to be removed from the school ASAP.
Davina McCain's son is a student at Pikesville High.
To hear him say that about kids, that's horrible. I mean, absolutely horrible.
And I agree with her. If this recording was real and this principal was actually saying these things about the students and staff members, then they should absolutely be removed from that position. I mean, if I heard anyone from any one of my kids' schools saying things like that, I would be the first one to demand that they go. But did this news anchor let them know in any way that the authenticity is still under investigation, or let this person know that it might not be real, or ask them what their thoughts were if it turns out to be completely fake? And while they keep saying that, yes, you know, it's still under investigation, the facts are still out, which is why we're not airing it, they're admitting that this recording is circulating on social media, but setting their audience up to believe it's the worst thing that they could possibly hear, planting seeds of how they should perceive it before they even get to it.
WJZ is choosing not to air the recording at this time because we are unable to verify the authenticity of it. But in it, a person purported to be the principal can be heard making disparaging comments about the test scores of African American students. The person on the recording then makes an offensive comment about an African American staff member at the school and members of the Pikesville Jewish community. WJZ stopped by Icewert's home to see if he had a comment about the recording.
Hi, I'm looking for Principal Icewert. He's not home right now.
A person spoke to us through the front door.
We'd like to know, like, which side you're on, I guess, because...
I mean, I'm here to hear his story.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna believe his story anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
And then they show up at this man's house, knowing that there is a really good chance that this whole thing might be fake, showing the entire world what the front of his house and what his front door looks like. And they're doing this under the guise of, we just want to talk to him. Truly, we're not doing this because we want this man to be targeted in any way after we've riled up our audience to believe that he's practically the KKK. They're practically like, no guys, whatever you do, don't show up at this man's house, White House with the brown front door. Do not harass or threaten this man who lives on this street at this house number. We don't know if this man's a racist, African-American hating, Jewish hating, student hating, bigoted, white supremacist who makes statements against people who don't look like him. We don't know if any of that is real, but probably are, but don't show up at his house right here. I mean, the whole thing is just atrocious. So the moment you've all been waiting for, I am actually going to play the recording, and you can tell me if you can pick up whether or not you would think that this was AI generated or if it sounds legit to you.
You know, I seriously don't understand why I have to constantly put up with these dumbasses here every day. Between these ungrateful black kids who can't test their way out of a paper bag, or these teachers who don't get it, how hard is it to get these students to meet their grade level expectations? Lawrence and Ravenel should have never been hired. And don't let me get started on DJ. I'm going to drag his black ass out of here one way or another. I'm going to get something to stick. I'm just so sick of the inadequacies of these people. And if I have to get one more complaint from one more Jew in this community, I'm going to join the other side.
This is what people were listening to and basing their opinions on, and I actually found the coverage from this station interesting and almost comical.
But who we haven't heard from, everybody, is the principal. Mm-hmm. And I just want to ask you, Brian, if I, you know, even when I was in Annapolis, if I was alleged to have said something, I would immediately come out and say, I didn't say it if I didn't say it.
Agreed.
I didn't say it.
Agreed. And be out there in front of the camera saying, this wasn't me. I don't know where this came from. This is, if you believe that it is AI generated, then you would say, hey, I have no idea where this came from, but this is not me. I did not say these things.
I think that there is a certain level of hesitancy in the second guy who's commenting here. Like, yeah, I would just say that I didn't say it. And, you know, like he's trying to convince us that he believes people would just take his word for it.
Now, you have a lot of folks, of course, who will take something like this and use it to their advantage and try to, you know, take this in a direction where I don't think it needs to be right now. They are investigating this to determine whether or not it's real or not. And if it were me and I was still in office, I would wait. I would wait until authenticating this type of thing, unless these folks know something about this principle that we don't know.
Even though he is expressing an interest in the investigation and what the investigation produces, he's sowing into people's brains like, yes, obviously they should work to authenticate it, but they wouldn't put this out there unless there was a reason to believe it was true. Like, nobody would do this to an innocent man. So he's saying to people, like, they put this out there clearly before the investigation was done, so there must be reason to do that, and the investigation is just a formality.
Well, if it's not him, then whoever did this is really good at that, and I just find it hard to believe that there's someone associated with Pikesville High School that has so much of an axe to grind that they're willing to get this incredibly good artificial intelligence recording and make it sound so real and personal to the story that is at Pikesville High School, right?
I'm just convinced that these guys are living in an alternate universe, because the idea that there's not even a possibility that someone in the school has that kind of an axe to grind is so much that they would disparage this man so egregiously is just unfathomable to them, because we live in a society that is just so loving and so kind, where people are having so much diversity, equity, and inclusion shoved down their throats that we're just spewing niceness all over the place, and we're just so full of joy that it just escapes in the form of sparkle farts and hugs. But it turns out, as ridiculous as their assessment of the situation was, it actually turned out to be more prophetic than either of them had planned. This came out on April 25th, so just a few days ago, just over 3 months after this whole thing erupted. It says, ex-athletic director accused of framing principal with AI arrested at the airport with a gun. So the article reads, Baltimore County Police arrested Pikesville High School's former athletic director Thursday morning and charged him with crimes related to the alleged use of artificial intelligence to impersonate Principal Ericeiswert, leading the public to believe Iswert made racist and anti-Semitic comments behind closed doors. Dazhondarien, 31, was apprehended as he attempted to board a flight to Houston at BWI Airport, Baltimore County Police Chief Robert McCullough said at a news conference Thursday afternoon. Darien was charged with disrupting school activities after investigators determined he faked Iswert's voice and circulated the audio on social media in January, according to the Baltimore County State's Attorney's Office. Darien's nickname, DJ, was among the names mentioned in the audio clips authorities say he faked. The audio clip had profound repercussions, police wrote in charging documents. It not only led to Iswert's temporary removal from the school, but also triggered a wave of hate-filled messages on social media and numerous calls to the school. The recording also caused significant disruptions for the PHS staff and students. Police say Darien made the recording in retaliation after Iswert initiated an investigation into improper payments he made to a school athletics coach who was also his roommate. Darien is also charged with theft and retaliating against a witness. This guy was stealing money, and when Iswert found out, he tried to ruin his life, his reputation, and his career by falsely painting him as a racist, anti-Jewish, hate-filled bigot. As it turns out, WBLA, that there was someone with a big enough axe to grind to take this man down. By the way, this is the athletic director that tried to take him down. So I'm just going to leave this photo up here while we talk about a couple of other things. So I did want to touch on this whole idea of an AI generated hoax, because this is something that could happen to any of us. And yes, clearly there are plenty of people who would do this for no reason. And I bet they all have "hate has no place here" signs in their front yard. So I do think that it would be really difficult for most of us to tell if something like this was fake or not, which is truly terrifying, especially if we've never heard somebody's voice before. And even though there were a lot of people in his corner saying that this wasn't him and that he himself said that this wasn't him and did not align with his values, there were enough of the outrage mob to drown that out and make it irrelevant, which again makes all of us that much more vulnerable. And I personally would like to think that if someone made an AI version of my husband's voice or one of my kids, that I'd at least be able to pick up on it. But for most other people, I don't think there's anyone that I talk to that much or listen to that much or know that well that I'd be able to tell if it was AI generated or not. Now, of course, it probably would depend on what they were saying, and I think that that would be more of an indicator than anything, because I think speech patterns are probably easier to pick up on. It's like when my son texted me the other day from a bus he was on because the school band that he's with was going on a field trip, and he said, "Mother, the bus that we're on is really fancy." And I was like, "Mother, you never call me mother." I was like, "Is this my son?" And he probably had no idea why I was asking him that. But later he told me that he was just being fancy because he was on a fancy bus. But you know, particularly when it comes to people that we're close to, we can kind of identify those speech patterns and words that they commonly use, and we can tell when they're speaking out of character for them. But again, when it comes to these hoaxes that spread across the internet, when it's people that we don't know anything about, we probably wouldn't be able to tell. So I was listening to Tim Pool talk about this very subject, just kind of, you know, the tone of voice and things like that. And I appreciated just this little bit of insight that he had on it. And I think that's just kind of important to consider.
How do you catch that it's AI? People believe this was real audio. I do not believe this is legitimate audio. I do believe it's AI. And the reason is it appears he accidentally used two so when you're doing voice AI manipulation, they have a variation meter. You can like adjust the variance. And it looks like he for whatever reason generated two different sentences using the exact same intonations. They sound identical except for the word "said." And that is not human. Humans do not speak that way. And so, as an example, saying something like, "You know, I'm going to go walk my dog, and then I will get on a bus. And then someone said, you know, I'm going to go buy a hot dog. And then I'm going to drive a car. You'd be like, that's strange. You get my point? Like, it's in the middle.
So I think that's just something important to keep in mind, because this is probably something that is going to happen more and more. But of course, there were long-term consequences to this. So back to this article, it says, Billy Burke, head of the Council of Administrative Supervisory Employee, the union that represents aigenerated, was the only official to suggest the audio was AI generated. Burke said he was disappointed in the public's assumption of aigenerated's guilt at a January school board meeting. He said the principal needed police presence at his home because he and his family had been harassed and threatened. Burke had also received harassing emails, he said at the time. I continue to be concerned about the damage these actions have caused for Principal Aigenerated, his family, the students and staff at Pikesville High School, and the Black and Jewish community members, Burke said in a statement on Thursday. I hope there is deliberate action to heal the trauma caused by the fake audio and that all people can feel restored. Police said the school's front desk staff was inundated with phone calls from parents and students expressing concern and disparaging remarks towards school staff and administrators. The flood of calls made it difficult to field phone calls from parents trying to make arrangements for their children and other school functions, officials told police. And as for Principal Aigenerated, of course, this is going to affect his job in the future, whether or not he is reinstated as principal or whether he goes to try and work in another school district. This is going to follow him and it's going to tarnish his reputation, because even if he is reinstated as principal or able to work in another school district in another capacity in education, there are enough people who are completely uninterested in facts, who want to believe that stuff like this is true and want to believe the lies of CRT that says white people are inherently racist and that racism isn't everything. Though if that were true, then they wouldn't need to AI generate racism. They wouldn't need to fabricate these situations as often as they do. People will not care if this was AI generated. They won't care that it was totally false, and they won't care that this man is innocent. Honestly, and this is purely my opinion, but I truly believe the guy that did this, the guy who was the kind of person that would steal funds and give it to his roommate, and the kind of guy who could ruin an innocent man's life to cover his own illegal activities and paint someone as the worst kind of human being, to me, this is the kind of person that has the kind of beliefs that we heard in the recording. In my opinion, that is the reason that it was so easy for this athletic director to create this dialogue, because this is what he thinks and believes. I just truly think that this is something that we all need to be aware of, because this is just one more thing that the morally depraved people in our society, particularly that have "hate has no place here" signs in their yards, they will use these to come after us. They will use these to go after people that disagree with them. They will use this to go after people that misgender them. They will use these to go after people that they don't agree with or that they have been told, led to believe are a threat to them. They will go after anybody for any reason, and this is such a dangerous tool that is obviously going to be used and has already been used as a weapon. So I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. Please be sure to hit that like button. It does help me out. Be sure that you are subscribed. I would love your help in growing this channel. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one.